Dear Taurus, if you clicked on this video today, there's a chance that deep down, you've already started to feel it. Something inside you is beginning to change. And as I was tuning into Taurus energy for this season, the first feeling that came through wasn't chaos. It was something much quieter than that, a slow inner shift, like certain thoughts no longer fit the person you're becoming. Like new choices are beginning to appear in front of you, and somewhere deep inside, Taurus is craving a different kind of life now, more peaceful, more honest, a little lighter on the soul. So if part of you feels like you're stepping into a new chapter, I want you to leave this in the comments. June is bringing me clarity, not as a promise, not as pressure, but as a quiet way of grounding yourself in what you're beginning to feel. And maybe a reminder to other Taurus souls here that they're not the only ones going through this shift right now. So now, let's take a deeper look at the message these tarot cards are opening up for Taurus today. Because the feeling surrounding Taurus lately isn't just exhaustion. It feels more like a quiet shift happening somewhere deep inside you. Maybe other people haven't noticed it yet. Maybe even Taurus hasn't fully found the words for it. But something about the way you see life is starting to change. And sometimes the biggest changes don't begin with a dramatic moment. They begin with the realization that the things that once made you feel safe don't really bring you peace anymore. The Justice card comes through first in this reading almost like a silent mirror. Not in a harsh or judgmental way. More like the moment Taurus begins being honest with themselves again. There are thoughts you've been trying to push aside for a long time. The kind of thoughts that whisper, just hold on a little longer, at least things are stable. As long as everything doesn't fall apart, that's enough. But deep down, Taurus knows they no longer want to spend their whole life just maintaining everything. Some of you are starting to reevaluate your current job. Some of you feel like you've poured so much energy into holding together a life that looks fine on the outside, while feeling emptier and emptier inside. And some Taurus souls are beginning to realize what they truly need was never just money. It was the feeling of being able to breathe again, to slow down without feeling guilty, to wake up in the morning without immediately feeling pressure sitting on your chest. The Two of Pentacles card carries a very familiar feeling for Taurus right now. One hand holding responsibility, the other holding hope, trying to balance everything: finances, work, relationships, stability, other people's expectations, and even the exhaustion you never talk about out loud. The strange thing is, Taurus has always been good at enduring. You can stay quiet for a very long time. You can keep carrying everything even when you're already tired. You can make everyone around you believe you're okay. But the body doesn't lie. There are evenings where Taurus sits alone in a familiar room, the phone screen still glowing, life still moving the way it always does, and suddenly this feeling rises up inside. I can't keep living like this forever, and that isn't weakness. That's the moment a part of you finally begins to wake up. The King of Pentacles card appears here as the version of Taurus you genuinely want to become. Not just someone who makes money, not just someone who stays strong for everyone else, but someone who can live a stable life without sacrificing their own peace in the process. Maybe lately Taurus has been thinking more about a different career, a different direction, a different way of living, or maybe just a different version of yourself, slower, quieter, but more real. And what makes this reading feel so important is the sense that Taurus no longer wants to return to who they used to be. Even if the road ahead still feels uncertain, you're already beginning to step away from the life that once felt familiar. Very gently, very slowly, but enough for your future to stop looking exactly the same. Sometimes the first changes seem so small: a new thought, a new boundary. One moment where Taurus chooses themselves instead of continuing to endure. But those small moments are often the very things quietly changing the direction of your life. And maybe that's why the next part of this reading carries an even deeper energy. Because Taurus is beginning to realize they no longer want to spend their life just trying to survive. There's a kind of exhaustion that sleep doesn't really fix. It's the feeling of waking up in the morning, looking at the clock, looking at everything waiting for you, and within the first few seconds of the day, your heart already feels heavy. Not because Taurus is lazy, and not because you're weak, but because for so long, you've been living in survival mode, just trying to keep everything stable. Holding yourself together so work doesn't fall apart. Holding yourself together so finances stay secure. Holding yourself together so other people can feel okay. Holding so much for so long that sometimes Taurus forgets what real rest even feels like anymore. The Hanged Man card appears during this season almost like a sacred pause. This isn't the energy of forcing yourself forward at any cost anymore. It feels more like someone finally standing still long enough to look at their life through different eyes. And maybe lately, Taurus has started realizing that many of the things you once called responsibility have quietly been draining the life out of you. Some relationships aren't exactly toxic, but they make you feel like you always have to be the strongest version of yourself. Some jobs aren't necessarily terrible, but they leave Taurus moving through each day like life has become one long obligation. And maybe the saddest part is, when someone lives that way for too long, they slowly forget they once had dreams that belonged only to them. The Ten of Wands card carries the feeling of someone who has been carrying too much for far too long. You know that image? Someone walks into the house after a long day, drops the keys on the table, doesn't turn on music, doesn't turn on the TV, just sits quietly in the dark for a few minutes, because their mind already feels too full. That's what this season feels like for many Taurus souls. From the outside, life may still look completely normal. You still answer messages. You still go to work. You still take care of what needs to be taken care of. But deep inside, a part of you has started asking, if I keep living like this for the next few years, will I still recognize myself? And that's where the Seven of Pentacles card comes through. This card carries such strong Taurus energy, quiet, patient, enduring, investing enormous amounts of time and energy into something. But eventually, there comes a moment where someone stops, looks back at the road they've walked, and asks themselves, is this still worth my heart? This isn't reckless change. Taurus doesn't let go easily. You're the kind of person who tries to fix things before walking away, who tries to endure before complaining, who tries to keep everything intact for as long as possible. So when Taurus finally starts feeling tired, it usually means you've been tired for a very long time already. And maybe the biggest thing changing inside you right now isn't your circumstances. It's your standard for peace. In the past, Taurus may have accepted a stable life that still left you exhausted, a safe relationship that still felt lonely, a good job that slowly disconnected you from yourself. But now, you're beginning to want something more than that. Not more money, not more attention, but a life where you still feel connected to yourself at the end of the day. A life where nighttime doesn't feel like sitting silently in your car, trying to cover your energy before walking back inside the house. And maybe that's the moment Taurus begins realizing that there are certain things in this life that no matter how important they once felt, simply cannot be carried forever. The hardest thing for Taurus has never really been starting over. It's accepting that something you once loved, deeply trusted, fought so hard to hold on to, no longer belongs to the person you are now. The Three of Swords card comes through in this reading without a dramatic feeling. It's quieter than that, more like a soft rain falling after days of heavy heat, not loud, not explosive, but enough to make Taurus sit still for a long time and finally realize how tired the heart has become. Some sadness doesn't come from someone hurting you directly. Sometimes it comes from staying too long in a place that stopped making you happy a long time ago. Maybe it's a relationship where both people have already changed, but still keep pretending things feel the same. Maybe it's a job that has drained nearly all of Taurus's energy. Yet you continue showing up because it feels safe. And sometimes, the thing Taurus needs to let go of is an older version of themselves. The version that believed you have to suffer in order to deserve love. You have to stay strong so no one feels disappointed. You have to sacrifice yourself for life to stay together. The Death card appears here as a very deep transition, not a frightening ending. More like the feeling of finally opening the windows in an old room, after years of keeping them shut. Fresh air starts moving through. Light slowly enters the space, and Taurus begins realizing you've been living in emotional suffocation for much longer than you thought. What's interesting is, a lot of Taurus energy right now no longer wants to argue. You don't want to keep explaining yourself to everyone anymore. You don't want to keep chasing places where you constantly have to prove your worth. There's a different kind of silence appearing now, more mature, more exhausted, but also more honest. The Devil card carries the feeling of invisible chains in this reading. Things Taurus once believed they couldn't live without. A habit, a relationship, a lifestyle, an environment, fear around money, the need to control everything. And maybe the scariest thing about those chains is that sometimes they stay attached for so long, people forget they actually have the power to walk away. Maybe Taurus is beginning to realize that many of the things you once called stability were really just familiarity. And familiarity doesn't always mean peace. Some places feel familiar, but slowly make your heart feel smaller over time. Some people feel familiar, but pull you further away from yourself. And some lives look perfectly fine from the outside, while leaving you feeling strangely empty inside. What makes this season difficult is that Taurus isn't someone who lets go easily. You remember deeply, you love deeply, You always try to repair things but before walking away from them. So when Taurus finally starts pulling back from something, it usually means the heart has already gone through many silent disappointments first. But maybe this is no longer really a story about loss. Maybe it's becoming a story about Taurus finally learning how to choose themselves again. Even if that brings sadness for a while, even if life becomes quieter for a season, deep inside, a part of Taurus is starting to feel lighter. Like after carrying an impossibly heavy suitcase for months, you finally set it down. And the strange thing is, once Taurus stops trying to hold everything together all at once, a different kind of energy begins returning. Lighter, quieter, but far more grounded. The Sun card comes through in this reading without that explosive feeling people often expect. It's not the kind of light that changes your life overnight. It feels more like the first rays of sunlight slipping through the curtains, after a room has been dark for a very long time. Warm, slow, and enough to remind Taurus, you still have feelings left inside you. You still have hope. You're still in there somewhere beneath all the exhaustion you've been carrying. Maybe lately, Taurus has started doing small things differently. Going to sleep a little earlier, spending more time in silence, not replying to every message immediately, not forcing yourself to show up everywhere just to make other people feel okay. And maybe for the first time in a long time, you've started asking yourself, what actually gives me peace? Not what keeps other people comfortable. Not what looks good from the outside, but what truly allows your heart to relax. The Nine of Pentacles card carries such mature energy here. It feels like someone finally realizing real stability doesn't come from keeping everything perfect. It comes from no longer abandoning yourself in order to maintain that stability. Some Taurus souls are starting to think differently about money now, not wanting to earn at the cost of their well-being anymore. Not wanting to live inside a pace that leaves the mind and body constantly exhausted. You're beginning to crave a life with room to breathe. Time to cook a quiet meal. Time to sit near a window without your thoughts constantly racing toward responsibility. And that doesn't make Taurus weak. It simply means you're beginning to understand your real value. The Strength card appears here as a very different kind of strength than the one Taurus is used to. Not strength through suffering, not strength through endless endurance, but the strength of someone who knows when to stop, who knows what deserves their energy, who understands they don't have to save everyone in order to prove they matter. It's a very quiet kind of growth. Other people may not notice it right away, but Taurus feels it, in the way you respond more slowly to things that once hurt you deeply, in the way you're beginning to create boundaries, in the way you no longer feel the need to constantly explain yourself to people who never truly tried to understand you in the first place. There's a new foundation being built inside Taurus now, not loudly, not dramatically, but honestly. And maybe for the first time in a long time, the future no longer feels like something you're simply trying to survive. It's starting to feel like a place Taurus genuinely wants to move toward. Maybe not everything is fully clear yet. Maybe there are still uncertain days. But, deep down, a part of Taurus has already stopped looking at life through the same eyes. You're no longer searching only for stability. You're searching for a life that actually feels alive. And sometimes that becomes the most important beginning of all, because there are certain doors in life that don't open when Taurus tries harder to be strong. They open the moment you finally stop fighting your real feelings. The Wheel of Fortune card comes through here like the feeling that something inside Taurus is beginning to shift. Not too quickly, not in some dramatic, obvious way, but enough for you to realize you're no longer standing in the same place emotionally. Maybe lately Taurus has started seeing life differently. Things that once terrified you don't seem quite as frightening anymore. And the things you once thought you could never let go of have slowly become the very things weighing your heart down the most. And then there are certain dreams Taurus pushed aside a long time ago, that now seem to be quietly returning. Not with the recklessness of youth, but with the awareness of someone who has lived through enough disappointment to understand how precious their time really is. The Judgment card carries such deep energy in this reading. It feels like the moment Taurus begins hearing their own inner voice more clearly than all the noise around them. There were years where you lived according to what everyone else needed you to be. The strong one, the stable one, the one who always knows what to do, the one who never falls apart. But very few people ever stop to ask Taurus, are you actually happy? And maybe the hardest part is, sometimes Taurus forgot to ask themselves that question too, until life finally began slowing down a little, until you found yourself sitting alone in your car after a long day, no music playing, No messages being answered, just staring quietly at the lights outside the window and realizing how far you had drifted from real peace. What's changing inside Taurus right now isn't only your choices, it's the way you define your life. There was a time when success meant constantly pushing harder, doing more, carrying more, proving more, but now, Taurus is beginning to understand that a meaningful life also needs softness. It also needs room to breathe. The star card appears at the end of this reading, like one long exhale after everything you've been carrying. Not loud hope, not unrealistic optimism. Just the quiet feeling of finally seeing another version of yourself waiting somewhere ahead. More peaceful, more honest. No longer needing to constantly prove your worth to everyone around you. Maybe Taurus doesn't have every answer yet, but you're beginning to realize you no longer want to return to the person you used to be. And honestly, that alone is already a huge step. Some people spend their entire lives living through fear without ever truly asking themselves what they want. But Taurus, after everything you've walked through, is slowly learning how to choose a life that actually fits your soul. A life where money doesn't cost you your mental well-being. A relationship that doesn't require you to shrink yourself just to keep it. A future that isn't built on constant exhaustion. And maybe the most beautiful part of this whole season is that Taurus no longer feels the need to rush. You're learning how to slow down enough to actually feel your life while you're living it. Because after so many years of trying to become the version everyone else needed, Taurus is finally beginning to return to the version your own heart needed all along.